Alrighty everyone, good evening. We are about to get underway, so please grab your seats. Kia ora. He mihi mahana kia koutou katoa. Warm greetings to you all and welcome to this special event on technology trends in construction, hosted by the Auckland branch of NZIQS. My name's Jehan Casinader. I had the pleasure of hosting the National NZIQS conference in Invercargill just a few months ago, and Nick has invited me to bring one of our most popular sessions to you here in Auckland, which we're very much looking forward to doing this evening. That was a session on AI and technology, and the reason that it's resonated, I think, with so many NZIQS members is because this is perhaps the hottest topic of the moment. We've called tonight's event, AI, can we surf it or is it a tsunami? And the question really is quite simple. Are we ready and prepared with the skills and the knowledge that we need to surf that wave, to ride that wave, or is it going to overcome us? And I think we all know what we'd prefer the outcome to be. So tonight is your chance to upskill, to hear from some great thinkers and leaders in this space, and also to learn from some quantity surveyors about how they're applying new technology on a practical level, on a day-to-day basis, in their own organisations and businesses. So that's what we have to look forward to, and you're going to play a really vital role in tonight's conversation as well. Let me start by thanking our sponsors for this event. First of all, our major sponsor, CMP Construction, and our associate sponsors, Agile Construction, Parks Flooring, South Pacific Fibre Group, Brilliant Steel, Asian Tilers, Live Firm Construction North Island, Qualico Construction, Certa Construction, and Express Plumbing. Can we give a big round of applause to all of our sponsors? And there they all are on the screen as well. Make sure you have a chat with any of the members of the teams from those organisations if you get to see them over the course of the evening. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping. We have asked you to register for tonight's event. Thank you to those who have done so. If you haven't filled in the register, it is just out in the foyer. Please make sure that you get the chance to pop your name in there on your way out this evening. In an emergency, this is all fairly obvious. Follow the instructions of the venue staff. Our assembly point is out on City Road. Bathrooms are located just outside this room along the corridor. There is a smoking area, and it is on the right-hand side as you exit the main entrance of the hotel. We are very much about convenience here. We're not just saying don't smoke. We're giving you a particular area if you need to do that. Smoking is not allowed on the balcony out here in the Jade Room. So let's get into tonight's conversation. I'm going to ask you a question. What can AI already do? Well, here's what it can do. It can pass law exams at a near-human level. It can beat world champions at chess. It can translate 95 plus languages in real time. It can compose songs, poems, and even classical music. It can detect cancer earlier than some radiologists. It can power self-driving cars through inner city traffic. It can draft legal contracts in under a minute. It can even win art and photography competitions. Can you imagine how deflated you'd feel as a young artist when you've been beaten by the AI? And these tools can now spot fraud faster than most analysts. But what does AI know about quantity surveying? As you've probably figured, quite a lot. QS work often comes up in the top 5 professions that are going to be significantly impacted by the rise of AI. And that's because the tech is already quite good at the computational parts of QS work, things like scheduling and estimates and cost plans. And of course, it's only getting faster and smarter. So how do we prepare for that shift? As quantity surveyors, how do you use the technology rather than letting it use you? Let me tell you how the evening is going to run. We have 2 fantastic speakers who have deep knowledge of the topic. We've given each of them around half an hour to share their insights with you. We'll then be joined by a panel of industry leaders, and we'll have some time for you to put your questions directly to them. And we're going to do that using Slido. Some of you might have used this tool before. It's very easy. There's nothing to download. All you need to do is scan the QR code, and we'll put this up a little bit later as well, but you're welcome to scan it now. No question is too big or too small. You can vote for other people's questions, which means we'll only get to the most popular ones on the stage. And if you're sitting next to your boss, the good news is that you can ask questions anonymously. So, no limits or holds on curly questions. Put whatever you like into the chat and we'll do our best to tackle them. Before I introduce our first speaker, I want to give you a brief moment to chat to the person next to you. And my question is this: how is AI already changing the way that you work on a daily basis? A minute just to have a yarn with the person next to you. What's not working? This is not working. Because what? Because why? Oh. It'll be smaller. Yeah, we do. I will. I will mention that later. Yeah, I will mention that in a second. Yeah, thanks. Alrighty, everyone. Coming back to the room. I understand that our beautiful seating arrangement was interrupting your view of the QR code. So hopefully this is not a view that has obstructions in front of it. But look, we will put the QR code back up a little bit later when we move into our panel discussion. Alrighty, let's come back to the main stage as we announce and introduce our very first speaker. Robert Amor is a professor of computer science at the University of Auckland. After completing his PhD, he spent 5 years in the UK for construction IT, and he spent the past 30 years exploring how computer science can be applied across industries, including construction. Recently, he's been diving into the rise of AI, looking at how it's influencing everything from data science to design to the built environment. So Professor Robert Amor is going to kick off our conversation tonight. Let's give him a very warm welcome to the stage.
Okay, kia ora. It's great to be here. I had the pleasure of being in Invercargill. I have even more pleasure being in Auckland, and I look forward to talking to you about AI. As I said, I've been working in this area. I'm a computer scientist. I'm interested in how we bring computer science into architecture, engineering, construction. And I've seen, when I started as a student, it just seemed like all of this computing stuff was really going to be useful. We just needed to find a way of getting it taken up. And that hasn't changed in 30 years. I'm now seeing all of this computing stuff and saying, man, this looks really useful. How do we get this taken up in the different industries? And so that's my interest. And I actually started 30 years ago, back in the early 90s. The very first job I had was working with brands, the Building Research Association, writing a language to translate codes. It was an AI project, writing codes into a computable form. So people have been thinking about this for a long time. So AI thinks it's everything, so it does think it's a QS. I want to tell you a few things. I would go through a few things. I want to talk about why we're excited about AI as computer scientists and why you probably don't care about that. But some of the things I think are useful. I want to talk about 4 areas that I think AI is going to have a major impact, and they're areas that I think impact a lot of your profession. So I'll talk about that. I'll talk a little bit about what I've seen in terms of the research that's going into AI for QS, quantity surveyors. Talk a little bit about how people are looking at introducing AI and the importance of how we manage our use of AI inside our companies so that we don't leak data into these great models which someone else can use. And then very quickly at the end, just let you know there's the AI Forum in New Zealand trying to accelerate the uptake of AI for this country. And there's an AEC working group in there, and I'll tell you just a little bit about what they're doing. So I say, as computer scientists, we've been excited for decades about the potential of AI. And the excitement is the potential to have a machine which is as intelligent as human. And that has, from a philosophical and a development approach, has been a real driver of what we've been trying to achieve as computer scientists. Can we make a machine that's as intelligent as a human? And that's been a grand goal. And so this ability to have a machine that as intelligent as a human or superhuman is still driving computer science. And I think you probably don't care about that. I mean, it makes great science fiction movies, and it's going to come, whether it's this year, next year, or a few years' time. The thing that a lot of computer scientists say is, well, this bit's not so interesting, is something they call narrow AI. And narrow AI is where you make an AI tool which is really good at one thing. So it's not general human intelligence, but it's really, really good at one thing. And I think that's where the magic is for us, that we can create tools, many tools, which are fantastic at doing very specific tasks. And I think that's what's going to transform our industries and transform our jobs. And so I want to talk about 4 areas where I think that's going to happen the most. So one place is where you have really skilled jobs. And our host talked about the ability of AI to be better than medical professionals in identifying some forms of cancer. So places where there's a lot of skill in recognizing a particular thing, whether that's cracks in concrete, whether it's air bubbles, whether it's the amount of work that's been done on a project. What can you look at and see? And we as humans take a long time to become expert at that. AI models are becoming good at that very, very quickly. I put up a picture here which is not QS or construction, just as an example of this. So this was Go, when Go, the world champion in Go, got beaten by an AI model. And that was something that we as computer scientists didn't think was going to happen. Chess grandmasters have been beaten for decades. Go is so much harder. And we thought there was still going to be another decade before our computing systems got anywhere close to beating the world champions in that. But they did. And this is, I think, 2018 when Lee Sodal was beaten by the AI tool then. And the one thing that I think is really interesting I'd like to put across about AI is artificial intelligence. And it is artificial. It's not human intelligence. It doesn't do things the way that we do them. And I'd like to demonstrate that with a couple of examples, and this one with Go. So at the time that the Grandmaster was beaten, the people who developed that program thought that probably 1 in 5 games would be won by the human. So they were going to win the series because they reckon they could do 4 out of 5 correctly. 6 months later, it was 1 in 1,000 games to a human. So this is one of the things with AI. It takes a long time to get good at something. Once it starts getting good at something, it accelerates very, very quickly. 6 months after 1 in 1,000, it's superhuman. A human will never beat it at Go. So this is the trajectory that we find with AI tools. They take a long time to develop their expertise. Once they get to a tipping point on their learning, they become very, very good at what they're doing. So we get superhuman performance in many areas. So in these skill areas, recognizing things, AI is going to be as good, better than the top experts in many, many areas that we want to be looking at our buildings about. AI is super attentive, okay? Doesn't get bored. Doesn't worry when the phone buzzes and who's that. When it's driving, it's not distracted by anything. Its attention is razor sharp, laser focused, and so it doesn't get bored with what it's doing. And that's really good for a whole lot of things that we want to do. Humans are terrible at this. We're not good at maintaining focus. You know, us people who are doing looking at screens all day to see, you know, security screens, who's coming in and out. You can't keep your focus on that for hours and hours and hours. But AI systems can do that. And so we can do health and safety monitoring. We can do quantity takeoffs. We parse everything that's inside the documents that come to us and identify everything is there, or attend to every single bit of information which is put in front of it. And that's beyond what humans are capable of doing. I said AI is an artificial intelligence. I'll use this picture to illustrate another part of it. I'm looking at the wrong picture. That one. This is AI looking at PPE on a site. I've had students doing this on a project, and you get really good. You can get about, well, my students got just over 90% in recognising whether someone is wearing a hard hat or not wearing a hard hat. Yeah, and that's, you know, that's not perfect, but it's getting there. It's an artificial intelligence. When I sat in front of the camera, did this, it said I was wearing a hard hat. Okay? No human would look at this and say, that's a guy wearing a hard hat. Okay? But what the AI system had learned is not what a human learns. It's not learning the way we do. It's not learning the things that we learn. It's learning in an artificial way, a very different way. And so the intelligence that we imbue in these systems is not the intelligence that humans would have. Okay? And I think that's another really important point for us to keep in mind, that it is an artificial intelligence. It's not going to do things the way that we do. When it makes mistakes, it's going to make mistakes that none of you in this room would make. It's going to make really stupid mistakes. It's still going to be better than us at the majority of the tasks that it does, but it's a very different intelligence. So AI is attentive. It keeps its focus. It will work well on those sorts of tasks. It's knowledgeable. We know that. Yeah. So it draws on more knowledge than a human can process in a lifetime. Yeah. We're really terrible machines if you think of us as machines. My input-output is what we talk about with computers, is so slow. How long does it take me to read a page of information? 5 minutes. How long does it take me to speak a page of information? About the same. Okay? AI tools are processing megabytes, gigabytes in seconds. Yeah, so we're a very slow channel to get information in and get information out. AI tools are able to process enormous amounts of information, the knowledge of the world, and serve that back to us in whatever fashion we're interested in. And we know that AI has high IQ, so there are many things that it can do which require very specialist knowledge. So being able to do code compliance checking of buildings, there are a number of AI tools in countries, including New Zealand, which are made available, which can do that checking of plans and determine whether it's compliant with the codes or not with the codes. Yeah, and you're probably all using these AI tools already. How many people here use AI every day? No, I don't believe that. Every hand should go up in this room. So, do you use maps? That's driven by AI. You use Uber today? That's all AI models. You do a Google search, the first summary at the top is AI. Yeah. AI we're all using it every day, all the time. Yeah. And so that high IQ we're taking advantage of in many, many tools which are a natural part of our life now, but they were going to come into architecture, engineering, construction, QS areas as well. Okay. So 4 areas that I think that AI is going to have a major impact in, and then we're going to see really big change in our industry in those areas. I said I'd talk just a little bit about what I've seen in different areas of research that has come through there. I run a journal, so I see lots of papers that come through from researchers around the world, and some of those papers are these sorts of things that we're seeing. So being able to do automated quantity takeoff is who's tried that? Who's thrown a plan into an AI model and said how many? And it was pretty crap, wasn't it? About 10% off, 20% off, yeah? But that's just a general model that hasn't been trained specifically on anything for this area, okay? It's just a general model that knows about the world, and it still gets a large percentage of the things right in there, yeah? Doing historical cost analysis, just because AI are knowledgeable, they have looked at many previous analyses, and they're drawing the patterns out of those. And so with those patterns and with current knowledge, they're able to do better analysis of what the pricing is likely to be, what the budgets should be based on what they've seen in many previous ones. This is me throwing a little plan into ChatGPT, and I didn't tell it anything. I just said how many doors in the plan, and it's identified the right symbols. It's identified the names of the spaces. I didn't tell it to tell me which spaces. It tells me which doors go through to which spaces. A bit further down there, it's a little bit confused. It doesn't know if it's a cupboard or not a cupboard. It says there's probably a door into a cupboard down there. Okay, so not perfect, but getting good. And as I say, remember the learning curve, really fast. As it starts getting good at something, it takes off. And so if it's 10% out today, the next models that come out in 6 months' time are going to be far more accurate in being able to undertake these tasks. Quite a lot of work has been coming out in comparing. So AI models really good at processing text, processing lots of text, natural language processing. And so you could feed in a number of tender submissions and ask it to summarize across all of those tender submissions. And so people have been doing that. They don't have to use the same terminology or identify where different terminology comes together, and it will give you a table which says what are the differences between the different tenders that are coming through. Doing cost management and cost tracking. So I don't know if people have seen Construction IQ out of Autodesk. So one of the first big commercial tools that has come out from Autodesk, where they're able to do prediction and prevention of risks to cost, schedule, quantity, and safety. So a commercial tool that you can buy and start using nowadays. The detection on site, I say that's image processing, that skilled task of seeing what is there and what is not there. A lot of people doing work on site now, so being able to say what has been built in a particular day, comparing to the schedules, being able to create invoices, depending on what work has been done. Lots and lots of work happening in that area. In that area. The picture there is from a New Zealand company, NextSpace, who are doing work in that area. So being able to take pictures, create BIM models out of those pictures from site, and do the estimation of the work that has been undertaken in a particular day or somewhere on your site. These are cats. So one of the problems that we have, the reason that the AI models get good is that they see lots and lots of examples of things. And so Google was really good at identifying a picture with a cat in it because everyone puts up these pictures of cats. My cat playing, my cat cuddling, so there's millions and millions of pictures every day of cats labelled with cats. So models which have lots of data become really good really quickly. The problem we have in construction is that no one's putting up pictures of cracks in concrete, thousands and thousands of them every day, and saying, look at my crack in the concrete. That's not happening. So our models are not learning, not seeing enough examples of our industry and the things that are happening in our industry to get as good as they are at identifying things which they see millions of examples of. And that's proving a real problem in our industry, proving a problem for almost all of the AI models we're trying to do in AEC, that we don't have enough examples to be able to do the training that we need to get to really high performance. Something a lot of researchers are working on, and we're finding ways of being able to learn well without so much data, but getting more data is still a real issue for us. The tools are knowledgeable, so if we give them data, if we tell them things, they're able to feed that back to us to answer our questions. The picture here is another student project, and they took some of the New Zealand codes and wrote a question answering system over the top of it, so you could ask a question about the codes, and they'd tell you what the codes say the answer is. Not just picking up where in the code the answer is, but picking out the actual number for something. So 58 millimeters or whatever the screw width has to be in this particular situation. So being able to tell you exactly what you need based on a set of documents that you feed it. That could be the New Zealand codes, 3,000 codes and standards, which I haven't read them all. Anyone read 3,000 codes and standards for New Zealand? No. Oh, one person in the back. Well done. But we don't process that much information. Our AI tools can process that. They can take all of your company's documents, all of your processes and procedures, and tell you what you should be doing in a particular circumstance, or what's expected from you in a particular circumstance. So being able to create a knowledge base of all of the information that you have within an organization, feed that back to you in a way that you can query and get the exact answers from it. Lots of people doing work on that. The tools that we have are really good at doing that where it's text. And so they're really good at natural language processing. We can process text. We can process text in 90 odd languages. We can translate text between languages almost as well as most translators do. Which is fantastic for me as an academic, because now all of my students write perfect English. And I tell you, a year ago, none of them wrote perfect English. So natural language processing is getting really, really good. And it gives us a really good way of understanding text. But text is not the only thing in our documents. And so the thing that we're still working on and not able to do as well is where we have tables of information. So understanding those tables and understanding the context and understanding how you apply the data in those tables, getting okay at that, but we're really not very good at it. And then all of the figures and graphs that we have in our documents. And the AI tools are really not good at that yet. But lots of people are working on that. How do we understand those figures and graphs? How do we turn them into a computable form so that the AI tools can reason over them and give us the information that we want on them? So I'm not saying AI is solving everything. There are many places where it's not perfect at the moment. There are places where it's working really, really well. So figures, graphs, not so great, but where it's just text, it can understand that text, it can process that text, it can manipulate that text and give us really good information. It's also really good at bringing lots of sources together. I talked about being able to compare tender documents, but it doesn't just have to be a set of documents that you give it. It can go out and find things that you might want to associate with it. So you could bring in carbon calculations to your analyses. And so it can go and talk to the construct database is being replaced, whatever the replacement for the construct database is going to be, talk to that, get the carbon data back from that database and bring that into your calculations. So again, it knows now how to talk to different computing systems, and so it can draw information together very quickly for us to be able to make a much more sophisticated analysis than we could do previously. So kind of the things that I've seen from a research area. Nick will talk much more about the practical and what's actually happening, but these are some of the things that people in the research area have been working on. One of the other things I'd like to talk about a little bit is just how do we get into AI, or what sorts of things do we need to think about as we get into AI? And as I asked, well, you're all using AI, so you already know that AI is there. But within our organizations, we need to have some sort of structure around that. We need permission to use it. Our company should be telling us, yes, it's okay to use it. We tell our students as academics, yes, it's okay that you use AI. We know it gives you a really good advantage for programming as well. It performs at an A level. So our students who are getting B's and C's, they're really stupid because they're not using AI. Every student should be getting an A in their course. But yeah, you should have permission to use it. So saying which tool that you want. So choice of the tool, making sure that employees know which tool is acceptable to use. And some of that is also setting up the tool so that it isn't sucking the data out of your company and passing it through into the learning of the AI. If you look at the setup for your AI tools, the majority of your AI tools by default will take all of the data you give them and they'll learn over it, okay, which is great, makes the AI tools much better. But if you're feeding it data which has IP on it, then you don't want that to happen. You don't want it to turn up on the next version of ChatGPT and your competitors to see what's there and the companies who provided you data. You don't want to see that appearing in the searches that people would do with those tools. So turning things off, making sure that you know what is allowable to be put into these tools, what your company accepts you can do with the tools. We know you have to train. Yeah, we know that for everything. We knew that for BIM. We knew that for all the other technologies that come out. If we don't train people in the use of the tools, somewhere around 10% of the people in an organization will take them up. So really important that the organization offers training, doesn't just say, yeah, okay, you're allowed to use it, use this tool, but teach people how to use it and what the expected use of it is. And again, we know I was involved in the BIM Acceleration Committee trying to accelerate the uptake of BIM in New Zealand, involved in the AI Forum, accelerating uptake of AI. What we know from the work that we did in there is that you need to embed things into an organization. And so it's very easy to do one test with a tool and it's going to be random. It might work really well, it might fail. And if you just do a test and it fails, well, you actually haven't learned anything. You really need to embed it into your process, to use it consistently for a period of time, understand how it works, and then you're going to see the benefits of using it. So just trialing is really not enough. And everyone who hears me talk hates me for this because I love data. And I always go back to data. And for me, data is fundamental to everything that we're doing. Good quality data is the backbone of everything that we want to do. And I talked about how AI systems learn with lots of data and how that improves, how we don't have enough data of the right sort for our AI systems to learn as effectively as we want them to. And that is an issue for everything that we're trying to do here. So I think people should be treating data like they treat their assets. We design the data, we have data standards, we should be representing information in a very particular way. We have to know where it comes from, how much we trust it, what we're allowed to do with it. We have to maintain it. We have to make sure that it doesn't get old, that everything is updated. We know where things have moved to, or things of your building has been remodeled. We have to maintain the models around those. We have to make sure who's allowed to access it and what they're allowed to access. And if we have that high quality data, then we can create great AI tools. Then we can create digital twins of our assets. Then our simulations work really well. Then we have really good BIM information. We can do co-compliance checking. All these things that we want to be able to do rely on high quality data. And I know from working with a lot of organizations, I know working on doing co-compliance checking, the data that a lot of organizations hold is really not to the level that you need for that. So when we try and do co-compliance checking, we find there's lots of missing data in the models that we have. People don't label the spaces with the use category, and all of our codes need to know what use category it is to work with those. So data is really important. So you might think, well, I'm an AI enthusiast. No, I'm not. I'm a Luddite. We need humans, and I believe humans need to be in the loop in all of the decisions that we make. AI is going to be a fantastic tool. It's going to be superhuman in performing many, many tasks. When it goes wrong, it goes stupidly wrong. Yeah. So human in the loop is going to be important for us all through the next decade as we introduce AI. You need to have experts there assessing what the AI is saying and determining what your decision is going to be, what your output is going to be. Yeah. And that's something I try and teach my students who think AI can write better code than they can. When it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. So have a human in the loop, okay? And that's where our expertise is really important. That's what our value is our expertise, to be able to assess the information that we get and be able to make the final decision on what's right. I said the very last thing I want to talk about. So in New Zealand, many of us think AI is going to be a force for good. So AI Forum exists, has been running for 5-6 years, looking at how we accelerate the uptake of AI within the country. We petition government. We try and change the way that they work. We try and make government use AI. Wouldn't that be fun? So we're looking at how we accelerate that uptake of AI. We have a group for AEC, and so addressing that area and addressing what would make it easier for people to use AI in that field. The work streams that we have looking at these areas, so assessing the work stream, looking at the strategies for bringing AI in, upskilling, how do we create teaching material, curricula that will let people know what AI can do and can't do. We've designed a 1-hour basic introduction to AI. We've just finishing the design of a 1-day course that will teach you the fundamentals of AI. We're working on a 1-week course, which will teach you a lot of depth about AI. So these will all be coming out. They're freely available for New Zealand industry. We made available for all of the professional societies as a way of trying to build up the expertise and the knowledge about what AI is and what it can do. We're trying to do a range of innovations to show how AI can work in New Zealand. So creating some tools for AEC that will work. With that, we are trying to turn government codes and standards into a computable form so that people can ask questions of those. And also looking at some of the governance issues. So what sort of contracts would you need for that? How do you mitigate the risks of AI, or how do you work with those? So a whole range of deliverables coming out of the AI Forum for AEC that we're trying to make sure that we can cover all the ways of building the community, building the knowledge, building the people's willingness to trial things in this area, so that we get better uptake, that we get people using AI in a way that is going to give them the most benefit, and that we're going to see a big change in the productivity of us here in New Zealand. And so there's a whole range of people who are working on that. Some of the leads in there from it, a whole range of other people in support of that. And I'll finish here. The QR code, if anyone's interested in finding out more, then scan that code and it'll get you to the AI Forum AEC Working Group, and look forward to seeing people there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for Robert. Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your insights so generously. And make sure you scan the QR code. I think we'll do our best to get those slides out to you as well, if that's all right with you, Robert, so that you don't need to be screenshotting and taking pictures the whole evening. We'll send that out after the event. On to our next speaker now, and a reminder that we'll be coming to our panel discussion shortly, so think about the questions you'd like to ask our speakers. But now it's my pleasure to introduce Nick Clements. Nick is the founder and managing director of YourQS, a tech-driven estimating service that supports builders and architects across New Zealand and Australia. Nick was the inaugural winner of the Building Institute of Aotearoa Digital Technology Award, so he certainly knows his stuff. And this evening, Nick is going to share how the technology is already reshaping the profession and where things are headed in the years ahead. Nick is, of course, the chair of the Auckland branch of NZIQS. Let's give him a warm welcome to the stage.
I'll start by moving house, because I noticed when I was sitting down there that, unfortunately, it blocks the stage a little bit. So I've called myself a sceptical advocate of AI. As I've got older, I've realised that the way my brain works is different to normal people, and the connections I make and the way I think about things and the conclusions I come to are quite different. I was sort of thinking back to when I was at high school. Our school uniform was all grey. You wore grey shirt, grey shorts. When you got to seventh form, you could wear black pants. And I realised in the rules that you could wear a white shirt. So I started wearing a white shirt. The teachers didn't like that because I was the only one wearing a white shirt. And they said, oh, no, you've got to wear a tie if you wear a white shirt. So I started wearing a tie. By the time half the seventh form was wearing white shirts and a tie, I changed back to grey and started wearing a moleskin jacket. Teachers didn't like moleskin jacket. So you see where this goes. So I've got to keep checking myself. Like, am I being sceptical because everybody's saying AI is the way it's going to go, and so my natural inclination is to say, well, no, let's go some other way. Don't know. Another big question. Am I going to have a job in 10 years' time? In my case, I certainly hope not, because I'm pretty old. I hope I'm lying on a beach somewhere in 10 years' time. But anybody younger than me, I can appreciate this as one of the concerns. Believe it or not, I've got a personal trainer, and it's one of the things we've been talking about. He's 28. He's saying, is AI going to replace me? And it's a big discussion point amongst his mates, is, you know, what's going to happen with their careers around AI. And while I'm not worried about what I'm going to be doing in 10 years' time, I've got a lot invested in the status quo. I've got a lot invested in how we work now. I'll cover a little bit later on the technology we've developed. And you know, am I worried about AI replacing what we're doing? So is that why I'm sceptical about AI? I don't think so, because I've been a technologist for a long time now. I've spent most of my career looking back over my shoulder at the bleeding edge. Not at the bleeding edge, but way too far ahead of it. So I don't think it's the technology that's scaring me. I think there's more to it. So if we roll back a little bit, so this is Nick, 2001. So I was working for Carter Holt Harvey. Just imagine me with no grey hair, a 90s appropriate moustache, presenting to Chris Liddell, who was the chief executive of Carter Holt Harvey at the time. And I had this idea, and I was pitching to him. And so this is a couple of slides. I went back and dug out an old PowerPoint of a couple of slides from my presentation back then. So the idea was, you've got somebody that wants to design a building, design a house, and they talk to a designer, and then they talk to a builder. There's the builder's ute, and there's his dog. Don't give me too hard a time. This was peak PowerPoint in 2001. And what happened was the designer would hand to the builder some information. The builder would then make multiple copies of it. They'd give it to the building supplies merchant. They'd give it to the frame and truss plant. They'd give it to the window manufacturer. They'd give it to the roofer. They'd give it to the kitchen company. And they'd all recreate that information in their own systems to be able to work out the costs of it. And yet somehow we imagined the whole lot was going to come together on site and everything fit together. But in reality, these communication points were like brick walls, and the information was getting chucked over those brick walls, and so people would receive the information and then go off and do what they want with it. And so my idea was, let's look at how technology could solve this. So we look at technology paths of some different things. So telephone directory, we started off with typewritten telephone directory so people could look up the phone numbers and have it stuck on their wall. And then we got word processors, so instead of having to type it out and Xerox it or print it out, we could actually just print them off a computer-generated document. And then at Cataholic we had intranet. So this is 2001, remember? Intranet was really cool in 2001. So we could go to this intranet, now not internet, intranet. So people probably half of you haven't even heard of what intranet is. So you could go and look up a phone number on the intranet. If you look at, say, equivalent accounting, so accounting started off with manual ledgers, hand wrote everything in, keep a track of what people owed you money for. Then it moved on to computers, so we could have it in computers. And then there's sort of big mainframe systems for keeping track of the accounts. Then we had accounting packages like MYOB, so anybody could start keeping track of accounts. So what was the equivalent for construction? So we started off with the building with the drawing board, so everything was done on hand drawn. We then moved to CAD technology, so it was sort of like hand drawing but doing on computers, so it was better. And what I was pitching was something at that stage we were calling building simulation, so using 3D models to do stuff with buildings. So this was leading edge in 2001. So where have we ended up in 2025? So if I take this slide and apply what's actually happened, if you look at 2025, nobody talks about telephone directories. It's all on your phone. You've either got a contact or you Google it or whatever. So there's no issue about getting phone numbers. Accounting's all on web systems, so you got Xero and other things. So you don't have accounting packages, you just do it all on the web. Building simulation, it's not so different. 3D models are used a bit more, but still we're pretty much a 2D world. A lot of it's PDF, paper-based. Sure, in the commercial space, there's probably a bit more collaboration around BIM, but it hasn't really advanced the way we thought it was going to. Anybody recognise this? You all got grey hair like me. So this was 1997. I got internet, and you used to have to put up with this. So when you connected, it was, if you did really well, you got 48K. It took me 48K. Now I got gigabit connection at home. You wanted to download a photo, it would take a few minutes to download this like 400 by 400 picture that you could barely see. If you had any video or voice, if it was more than like a 2 megabyte file, it was pretty much unusable. And I can remember I was running customer service centres at Carter Harvey, and we had this consultant in, and we were looking at trying to, what could we do to make our customer service centres work better. And she said, you've got to prepare for the internet. And I thought, what? You've got to be kidding. There's no way that's going to be any use whatsoever in business world. And now look, it's changed the world. It's just completely changed the world. So we look at different technologies. So I've been through, advantage of getting old is you get to see a few things. Been through a lot of technology scenarios, technology coming in. And this organisation in the States called Gartner developed this thing called the hype curve. And so that's this sort of curve. And so what happens is everybody gets really excited about it. It gets really hyped up. Then everybody starts, this is actually a lot harder than we thought it was going to be. It's not going to do what we thought it is. And you get this trough of disillusionment. So everybody, a lot of people give up on it. And then over time, people start figuring out, working out how they can use it. And it settles into this plateau of productivity. So it settles into what the normal is. And what Gartner do is plot all these different technologies. So this is the AI one. You probably won't be able to read it, but it's all the different AI things and their projections. The different colours mean how long do they think it's going to take between being at the height point and getting to the plateau of productivity. But they've had this concept around for a whole lot of different technologies. And it was around with BIM. So I can remember I got punted from Carter Harvey in 2004, started the software business. And I was meeting with a guy, Peter Bergout, who was the CEO of Master Builders, and talking about what we were looking to try and do with what we'd learned from our time with 3D models at Carter Holt and how we were going to develop this 3D model system. And I remember him saying that, it might be 2 years or it might be 5 years, but everything's going to be 3D. And I was thinking, 2 years? We won't survive 2 years. And here I am 20 years later, still pretty much saying the same sort of things. So one of the questions is AI going to be BIM or is it going to be the internet? Anybody that says it is or it isn't doesn't know. You can't predict the future. We don't know. BIM absolutely was a no-brainer. There's no real technology reason, I'm sure Robert would support this, as to why it isn't working, but it hasn't worked. It hasn't delivered what we thought it was going to do 20 years ago. AI, I hope, is going to be better, but who knows? And I think the big difference between BIM and AI is BIM was like this little construction niche, so there was a handful of us that knew about it, a handful of us that understood it. With AI, it's freaking everywhere. Everybody's talking about AI. And so the hype is massive compared to what we experience in the BIM space, but is it going to be different? So I'll tell you a little bit about my story, about my business. So Your QS, we're quantity surveyors. We mostly focus on residential estimating. We work for about 300 builders around the country, and we've also started working in Australia. We do a lot with architects. We've got 2 in-house software developers, so I often say to people that my QSing is to fund my R&D habit. So we spend about half of our turnover on developing our technology, because the idea that I came back with, that I was pitching to Chris Liddell back in the Carter Harvey days, is still the idea I've got now, and it's still what we're looking to try and achieve. How I came around with that idea was I was marketing manager at Carter's, and one of my roles was we worked with a number of different group builders, and I had to set the frame and truss pricing for the standard plans that these group builders produced. And what I did was use one of our frame and truss plants to work out the cost of the frames and trusses, and then told the other 8 that we worked with, this is the price you're going to sell it for. So I had 8 people complaining about our pricing. And so what I did was I sent out 3 sets of plans to all plants and got them to price them, but also got them to send back how they priced it, and I got 9 completely different answers and 9 completely different methods of how they did it. I thought, there's got to be a better way than this. And I started thinking about it and thought, I talked before about how the communication between the designers and the builders, back then it was literally paper-based. So people would print out wads of documents. Our frame and truss plant, people would be turning up with these wads of documents. And what I realised was these documents were produced by computers. So they produced it in a computer, printed out, because everybody was used to dealing with things on paper. And then we had computers for doing the costing. So we had Excel spreadsheets or MyTech or Prida or whatever for doing the frame and truss side of it. And I thought, why can't computers talk to each other? They're both computers, aren't they? What that really showed was just how little I knew about computers. And it might be a simple idea, but it turned out it's not actually that difficult. Over the years, I've been working away at that basic concept, but what I've realised is the underlying idea behind it is connecting the design decisions and the cost impact on them. At the moment, there's a really big gap. Back then, there was potentially months between when a designer would make a decision, print it out on a bit of paper, would go through all the processes, and somebody would figure out the cost of it. And so the whole idea behind our business and what I've been trying to do, I realise, is trying to bring this concept of design, decisions, and cost impact closer together, so designers can understand the impact of their decisions more quickly. And I believe if they can do that, we'll actually end up with a lot more efficient buildings and a lot more cost-effective buildings. I've called this concept cost-informing design. But what I realised pretty early on is that for this to work, the costing's got to be pretty accurate. And my view of the way estimating was done was using a lot of square metre rates was traditionally how it's done, is so many of the details get lost in those square metre rates. And if the building design, if the cost doesn't respond to those changes in the design, then what's the point? So we had to come up with a better method. So I developed something. So this is 2025 PowerPoint. That's pretty cool. So we came up with this idea of visual costing, and it's building on this thinking around 3D models. So we've developed our own technology. So what I'm showing you on screen here is our software system. So this is what my team's using all day, every day. We create a 3D model of all the different building elements. On the left-hand side is what we call template elements. So the team pick the template element for whatever it is they want to model. They model it, and on the right-hand side is, as they place things into the model, it creates a schedule of what's in it. By making it 3D, it's very visual, so you can immediately see if you've missed a wall, or it should be a raking wall, and it's not. We colour code things so we know different wall types. And then behind each of these template elements is a whole lot of, we call it metadata. So there's a whole lot of information that tells our elements how it's made. So we might be selecting the framing type or the insulation or who's building it or what the bottom plate connections are. And then my guys push a button and it works out the cost. So most of what they do is modelling and pushing a button. But in behind it is a whole lot of information. So behind each of those template elements is, we call these assemblies. So it's basically a flow chart as to how that building element is built. And it uses a combination of the metadata off those elements and the geometry to step its way through this flow chart and work out all of the labour, materials, subcontractors, whatever's involved in it. So we put a lot of research into building these template elements. So it means that our guys, when they go to use it, don't have to know how long it takes to put in a door, because that's research, put in the decision. As long as they make the right settings on the door, they're going to get the right amount of time out of it. So our organisational knowledge is built into our software as opposed to being in the heads of our QSs, which would be traditional estimating. When I first got it working, we started producing results out of it, handed it to a builder, and they said, I can't understand this. It doesn't look like anything I've ever received before. So we spent quite a lot of time working on developing some reports so that we could present it in a way that they could understand it, so trying to get it to a point where it's relatable. We might be confident that the model was right and the data was coming out right because we've created this wonderful 3D model, but if the client doesn't believe you, it's half the challenge. And so the report includes a screenshot of the model so they can get to see a picture of what we've done. It gives them a schedule of what the different elements are. We identify the key information about those elements. And then it provides a complete breakdown of all the labour, materials and so on for what you see in that screenshot. So over time, we've refined this, improved it, got it to the point where we can give it to most people and they understand it straight away. Our latest thing we've done, which is really starting to bring it all together, is we've now got a web version of this available. So we give our clients a link to a 3D model so they can actually go online, interact with the 3D model, make selections in the model, actually show them the slice of the model, and then show them the cost breakdown. So this is the area where a lot of our work's going into. So this presentation is about AI. So what do I know about AI? I'm absolutely not claiming to be an expert. So in spite of what Jehan said, I'm still learning. And what I've been doing is, and I recommend everybody do this, is basically take every opportunity you can to get any sort of training. So I've done a bunch of different training courses. Anytime anything pops up that's about AI, I jump onto it and try and do it. I was lucky to get selected by Spark to be funded to do this mini MBA, which was about 5 weeks of training where we did 2 or 3 days a week with a crowd out of the States. And it was really useful in helping me understand sort of where things were at with AI. But what I've realised is the more I let to learn about it, the less I actually know. That's not stopping me from persisting with it. We definitely won't be missing out. As Robert touched on, a big thing with AI is data and structured data, and we've got a lot of that. And so we're working on a number of projects around how we can utilise the data we've got, and we've got a few collaborations we're working with Robert on. We've already given it a try. We did our first AI project about 3 years ago, and one of the lessons from that was AI isn't right in every situation. What we learned with that is it was going to take about as long to train the AI to do the job as it was to do the job. So that made me realise that AI is great where you've got a real leverage between whatever it is you're trying to do and how many times you need to do it. If you're not doing it that often, doesn't matter how slick the AI is, it's going to be a sort of break even at best on the time involved in it. But if it's a 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 1,000,000, then investing in the AI and building it is great. Robert touched on this a bit again. So this is sort of AI learning. So this graphic sort of shows over time as the AI models are developed. And what to me is most interesting is look at the gradient of the graph. It's definitely AI is getting faster, getting better. It's able to learn things more quickly than what it was. So definitely what we knew about AI a year ago, 6 months ago, may not be relevant in a year or 6 months, 6 months or a year's time. The thing I find the hardest with AI is it's really easy to imagine what AI can do. Yeah, I like sci-fi. I like reading sci-fi, and sci-fi is a lot about imagining what the future's going to be like. But I think there's a big gap between reality and what it's actually going to do. And there's a lot of speculation about what AI might do. I'm not averse to imagining possibilities. I follow this great philosopher who once said this: free your mind and your ass will follow. If you imagine, nothing has ever happened that somebody hasn't imagined beforehand. And if you're willing to stretch your mind a bit and imagine some stuff that may not seem feasible, you may actually come up with it. If you first can't imagine it, you can't create it. So our business has been quite heavily supported by Callaghan Innovation and others, and you've got to be pretty imaginative to get an R&D funded application through. And so I've come up with ideas about what we could potentially do in our R&D, and as I worked through them, and I was thinking I was coming up with this idea to try and make it sound R&D enough to be able to get it through the Callahan process. And then I've actually thought, actually, that's not a bad idea. And we've ended up going and doing it. So I thought, okay, let's have a go. So I thought, okay, what's something that's really crazy that I could come up with? And I thought, well, what if you had this, an app that you could have on your phone that could sniff the exhaust of a car and tell what's wrong with it? So we've got an app that looks like that. But then, does the technology exist to be able to understand the gas coming out of the exhaust? If it did understand the gas coming out of the exhaust, will it actually point to the real problem? And then you might get this grizzly old mechanic looking at it and listening to the car and say, oh yeah, that's your combobulator, mate. So somebody straight away can just come straight to the answer and don't need all this technology to be able to do it. And then there's this. So what if we had AI-enabled concrete trucks? So I didn't create this. So when I was on that Spark course, one of the guys, we were doing a session around sort of AI and videos and how you could prompt videos and create videos. And while we were doing the course, the guy created this video. So it's pretty cool what AI can do. Like, I'm not saying AI is a load of rubbish. We just got to understand where it's appropriate and what it can do for us. So a great person once said that a quantity surveyor is somebody who can predict the cost of something in a month's time, in a year's time, in 5 years' time, and then explain why it turned out differently. So that's a misquoting Winston Churchill. So AI, if you look at AI, it's a pattern recognition on a scale that humans just can't absorb. It's just bigger than what we can handle. If you look at what AI, it doesn't actually invent anything. It's basically, it can only repeat back to you stuff that's been trained, stuff that's learned, but it's be able to recognise, it can take this enormous amounts of data and identify patterns out of it that are beyond what we can do and come up with answers. If you look at what an AI, what a QS does, we're recognising patterns in buildings, we're recognising things from history, and we're taking those things from history and applying them to the future. So it really sounds like a match for AI. Which is, I think, why everybody says, oh, QSs are going to be replaced by AI. It's not even a question, it's just a statement of fact. Some challenges around that. So it needs a lot of data, AI. So we talk about AI being trained, it needs monstrous amounts of data. So see on this graph, it says 1 trillion. So a trillion, for me, is a really hard number to get my head around. So if you think of that as a metre, 1 trillion metres is a distance between here and the sun times 1,000. So it's just an enormous amount of information. And these are parameters. So parameters are like the knobs in an AI. So it needs an enormous amount of data. And this is the amount of data that's been built up with AI models over 50 years, or 70 years or whatever it is that AI has been around. So it needs a massive quantity of data. And they're even now starting to speculate we were going to run out of data. So as crazy as that seems. So this is looking at some of the existing models that are around now. So you've got Llama and a few of the other ones. So they're predicting when are we going to get to what they call overtraining. So not only is the amount of data an issue, but the more data you get, it's getting to a point where you're feeding the models so much data, it's starting to confuse itself. So they're talking about being overtraining. And so overtraining is a problem, and they're saying potentially it's going to run out of data somewhere around 2029. So there's a lot of information around, but AI consumes a huge amount of it. And it's really expensive. So that's $100 million on the left-hand side. So we're talking about things like Gemini and ChatGPT-4. These companies are spending like $100 million US training their models. So the training is something that absolutely requires, but it's a big, big exercise. And then you still get crazy stuff coming out of it. So these are some examples that came up through my the Spark training thing. So cheese won't stick to my pizza. And so AI recommends using non-toxic glue. How many rocks should I consume every day? So according to UC Berkeley geologists, eating one small stone each day is good for you. The health benefits of running with scissors is you get cardiovascular exercise. And it can be pretty dark. So this was another one where I've stopped my meds and undergone a spiritual journey of my own. And AI is saying, good on you, I'm proud of you, stepping out and not going the easy conventional way. One of my mates is the head of the Auckland School of Population Health at Auckland University. And there was AIs confirming people that it was a good idea to commit suicide. So you'll get the picture. So if part of the problem with AI is that every time everybody sees a problem, AI is going to fix it. So for us, and as you know, I've now sort of joined the computer programming world somewhat reluctantly, and if then is a core part of computer programming. So if this happens, then do this. And I've been sort of kicking around things, what could we use AI for? And each time, or a lot of the times, I've been coming back that actually algorithms work better. And the big difference with an algorithm, so this is sort of our algorithm for costing external walls. You look at how complex it is, just these bits of the internal walls ends up with 35 million permutations. The difference between this and AI is I know that if I put in this set of parameters, I will get this answer. No question, no doubt. AI is this fuzziness to it, that you may get that answer, you may not. So it's not like just going to Google and getting a whole lot of information back and you make the choice about what you believe, what you don't, what you think the source is. It makes it up. It's got biases. It doesn't know your company. It doesn't necessarily know your markets. It isn't New Zealand culture. It's not current. So even with all this training, the training is behind where we are now. It's inconsistent. So the results you got yesterday might be different today. People don't necessarily believe in that. So, and it could be completely wrong. So we look at this one. I was at the Constructive last week. John Key was talking, and he was talking about our ageing population. And I was thinking, I remember, and he was saying, in the 70s we had 3 million people. And I was thinking, I remember at primary school talking about our ageing population, and our population was like 2.5 million. So I thought, okay, I'll ask Google, when was New Zealand's population 2.5 million? Was I remembering it wrong? And Google gave me this and said, so New Zealand's population is 2.5 million in the 1990s. It was 2.4 million in 1960, 3 million in 1973. About 500,000, and then if you look, you probably can't see it on the screen. Down here it says the mid-1990s, the population reached 2.5 million, and it had dropped from the 1960 to 1973. Well, anybody who's living in New Zealand over that time period knows our population did not drop by 500 million over that, 500,000 people over that time. Then I thought, what happens if I ask AI the same question every day? So for the last 4 days, I've asked it exactly the same question. So this was the next day's question. So it said the population reached 2.5 million in 1983, not 1964 or whatever it was in the first one. Then I asked it again the next day, and this one said population reached 2.5 million in 1985, not 1983, the day it said before. And then it said population growth grew to 3 million, and it actually gave some sources this time, so it makes it seem a whole lot more credible. So it's macro trends, wherever that is, Radio New Zealand confirmed this, so that seems pretty credible. Then I asked it yesterday, and it said the population was 2.5 million in 1986. It was 3.3 in 1993. It was 2.5 somewhere between. By 1960, it was 2.4. The stuff down the bottom was probably about right. So 2.4 in 1960. So me being a kid at primary school in the late 60s, it probably was 2.5. John Key saying it was 3 million in the 70s, probably about right. And we got to 4 million in 2000 or something. Yeah, it's probably about right. So if you're a builder and you've had your contract price worked out by AI, how will you feel signing that $2.5 million contract if AI has done it? Here's another example. I've sort of been watching out for things since I've been doing these presentations. So this was an architect posting. They gave this brief to AI saying, I want a hexagonal couples retreat. This is what the architect drew up. So it sort of seems pretty credible, some nice decks, bit of a layout that's sort of functional inside. AI came up with something that broadly meets the brief. It's got decks, it's hexagonal shape. But if you get into the detail, you look down the bottom right there, there's this funny little space that it's got deck in it, but it sort of seems to be inside. It's got a really weird shaped table. So yeah, it sort of beats a brief, but it's not what a human would do. This is something that Robert put us onto. So we've had a couple of goes. This is a crowd out of France that have developed an AI technology for converting 2D plans into 3D models. So we spend a lot of our time modelling over the top of 2D drawings. So I thought this could be really good for us. What we found with it works, but it works to a point. And the issue was that it would take us about as long to clean up what they'd done as it would take us to do it in the first place. So yeah, for our use case, it wasn't accurate enough. For other use cases, it might be fine. And they've built a market, and they've now got a plug-in into Revit, and they're carrying on. So you look at the bottom straight away, you can see windows don't really make sense, so it can only read the windows in 2D. So to try and figure out what the actual dimensions of windows are was sort of one of the issues. Robert touched on sort of 2D measurement tools. So it's pretty cool at being able to, you teach it the symbol for a light switch, and it'll go and find all the light switches on the plan. So that's pretty good. And if you're using any sort of 2D takeoff tools, you definitely want to be looking for these sorts of aids to what you're doing. But But our thinking is, why would you want to convert from a 2D drawing if that drawing was actually created with a 3D model in the first place? So you have this 3D model that's got all the information and you turn it into a 2D drawing that you then use AI to turn it back into a 3D model. So what we're looking to do, we've released what we call BIM to your QS, so plugins for Revit and ArchiCAD, and most of our focus is going into that area, is sort of trying to drive and improve the connectivity between the 3D model and our costing process, which, if you haven't fallen asleep yet, you'll remember back is sort of my idea from about 1993. So that's what we're working on currently and hopefully getting there. And for me, measuring isn't really the challenge. It's what do you do with the measure afterwards. And if you look at text, the reason why AI works really well with text is text has got a lot of really well-defined rules. So there's grammar, there's spelling, there's thesauruses, there's dictionaries. So it's able to take text and make a lot of sense of it because there's a lot of rules behind it. If you look at images and videos, there's rules and structures within the file formats, but that's pretty much at a geek level. Where it's been able to make up for the fact that there's no rules about what looks like a cat is these AI companies have spent a fortune training the AIs to know what looks like a cat. So that's why we get so much good stuff with videos and images. And there's also a huge amount of content available for them. If you look at estimating, it's unstructured data. So we've got, ours is very structured because of the way we do it, but we come across what other people are doing, and people are using Excel spreadsheets, they're using CostX, they've built their own costing methodologies, the information they produce, whether it's good or bad or accurate or otherwise, is all almost bespoke. And so trying to make sense of that at any sort of level is very challenging. There's no standards, it's really variable, it's very country, market, product specific. There's very little publicly available, meaningfully accurate data. So one of the big challenges we've had with the business is collating the data that we need to be able to put into the system, and it's a real challenge trying to find it and keep it up to date. Yet if we're relying on AI trolling the internet for all this stuff, we struggle to find it as humans, so I'm not sure how AI is going to find it. So I'm not convinced that AI is going to be a threat to QSs. But it's not saying that AI hasn't got some really great uses to it. I heard a lecturer from AUT talking, and she used these words, decision support system. Now, back in the 90s when I first started getting involved in computing, decision support systems were what they called computers. And now they're starting to talk about AI as a decision support system. So it's a bit like asking an expert or a mentor. It augments what we're doing rather than replacing what we're doing. It has fewer blind spots. It understands feelings but doesn't have them. It's impassive. It needs a framework. It also knows no boundaries. So coming back to my question, am I going to have a job in 10 years? Probably. But it'll be different. We're going to be doing different things. It's going to provide us with different tools. We absolutely need to learn how to use those tools to benefit what we're doing. AI is going to be one of the reasons why it's different. There's any major technology of us, if you look back over history, back to the Industrial Revolution, there's always been job-eating robots. There's always been something come along that's going to replace a whole lot of people. The reality is the technology is always challenging. The change is challenging. But the historical pattern is that new technologies create new jobs. And so unemployment hasn't actually changed over the last 400 years. What people do have changed, and the skills they need to be able to do it have changed. But there's still going to be jobs out there. So that's me. So no AI was harmed in doing this. But and where AI is great is doing stuff that you're not good at. Like I'm good at writing, I'm good at talking, so there's no point for me using AI to write and talk. But I can't draw. So a lot of those graphics and a lot of those pictures were done with AI. Creating a video. A lot of the layouts and stuff, I used AI tools to be able to help with that. So that's what I recommend everybody is basically work out where AI is going to help you be better at what you're doing. Don't worry about whether AI is going to replace you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. Round of applause for Nick. Stay up here if you like. I'll ask Robert to join us on the stage. And actually, before we sit down, here is the QR code. It's been elevated slightly, so hopefully the chairs aren't getting in the way. You might need to stand up, or feel free to wander up to the front if you haven't been able to reach it. And we will move into our panel discussion. Joining us, along with Robert and Nick, are two more smart individuals who are going to join our conversation. So welcome Phil Hebden, Director at Morden Limited and a Project Delivery Specialist. Phil has over 30 years of experience across the UK and New Zealand. His career has spanned senior commercial roles and he's led major multi-million-dollar projects in healthcare, justice and education. He was recently recognised with the APAC Innovation Award for his work in subcontract automation. Welcome, Phil. And Mark Abbott. Mark is a seasoned management consultant, currently the Chief Executive of Te Kahui Whaihanga New Zealand Institute of Architects, which is a membership organisation representing over 4,500 people across the country. He has decades of experience driving transformational change across local government, corporates, SMEs and not-for-profits. Can we give our panel a round of applause? Thank you for your questions, which are already coming through via Slido. First of all, Phil and Mark. Oh, we don't have a chair for you. No. You sit here.
We said 4 chairs, we forgot about you.
I'll stand up here.
I think you've unplugged yourself as well.
Phil and Mark, I'd like to start by giving each of you a chance to give us your thoughts on what you've just heard from Nick and Robert, and then we'll move into a conversation. So, Phil, would you like to kick us off?
Right, sure, yeah. Hello, everybody. Firstly, we'll just talk about what Robert spoke about and the new innovations that's coming through and the fact that we should all be absolutely embracing it. I absolutely completely agree that everybody should be taking every opportunity to use it as much as they can, but do it with care and verify what you're getting, because it will send you down a rabbit hole if you're not careful. And following from what Nick said, again, is he a skeptic about it? I probably was a little bit skeptical about it. I didn't trust it. I was a Skynet fan, you know. And but over the last 8-10 months, I've done so much with it, and I've found so much that can be done with it, that to not do anything with it is a huge mistake. If you get left behind now, trying to catch up in a few months will be almost impossible. It's not very long since Invercargill, but already, and me and Robert have spoke about this, already between that time, so much has moved forward. It's absolutely incredible. And what Nick's doing and what Nick is trying to do and what Nick's developing in it should be absolutely lauded. And everyone else should be jumping on that bandwagon and following suit.
Thank you very much, Phil. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you. Can I take a couple of minutes? Because I had ChatGPT write some notes.
Okay, well, that means it will be very brief. We'll just put through ChatGPT.
I was intrigued by two of the comments earlier which said that in many cases, some cases, artificial intelligence can actually detect various forms of cancer much better than humans. But were you aware that the same is possible for a number of species of dogs who are used by many research organisations to actually predict and detect cancers? So I don't know that the human element or human comparison is necessarily always the right one. Anyway, AI, an emerging trend. So I represent an industry group of architects. So it's either going to intrigue or drive fear into the hearts of the architectural profession. Fear driven from a misconstrued belief that a computer and the supporting networks and infrastructure needed to fuel that will take jobs, opportunities and connections in an already constricted marketplace. The alternative is that in many cases it may just well do the opposite. I read yesterday, and I haven't validated this, so please excuse me. I read yesterday that Albania has made headlines by appointing an AI government minister to fight corruption in public contract procurement. Now, we're not talking about a real person who happens to be appointed a minister. We're talking about an AI bot that actually holds the role of minister. This is Diella, the world's first artificial intelligence-powered minister. This machine was developed with the help of Microsoft, and it's interesting that it was launched in Albania and not Alabama, but I guess that's life. This bot processes vast amounts of documentation impartially, reducing the risk of human bias. So a positive. I guess that brings us to another dilemma, and that's, isn't human bias sometimes a good thing? It's fueled on relationships and histories of connections and interpersonal skills, and surely a binary assessor cannot replicate that. Architects internationally would position AI as being in an early R&D phase, and I'd be inclined to agree with that. So research undertaken in the UK by the Royal Institute of British Architects puts AI into 4 categories currently. One is design ideations, so visualizations and concepts. So this is like Photoshop on steroids, I guess, wrapped into systems that's easily accessible and maneuverable. Specialist rendering skills may no longer need to be outsourced. That's a good thing. Number 2, concept designs. Stunning concept design images can now be produced from text prompts alone and can easily integrate with CAD and BIM modelling systems. That's a good thing. Text generation. This was the launch of the AI Tsunami. Practices are using ChatGPT for writing and rewording of reports. Let's face it, in many cases, architects are not necessarily that good at the written language. They're very good at design and the aesthetic. Summarising ideas for client proposals, presentations, automatically populating fee proposals, for instance, doing back office admin stuff, the boring stuff such as HR and compliance, accounting and finance. That's a good thing. Archiving. Machine learning is being applied to enable categorisation and storage of imagery and designs into accessible and secure libraries. I'm inundated at the moment with requests from members to help fund the archiving of physical memorabilia and physical artefacts. And I'm thinking, this isn't just a minor job. This is a multi-million-dollar exercise. But it also comes with the infrastructure needed to build great storage archives at certain temperatures to store them. You know, we're looking in the future at how we actually take digital archives and digital artifacts, for instance. So is AI, to me, a threat or a benefit? AI systems have no understanding of proprietary systems or feature importance and can therefore only prompt and advise rather than design and debate and overlay criticality in the architectural world. As a machine-based source, it's good at making binary connections, but it is not yet a storyteller in the way that architects are critical thinkers and make a design journey that responds to sight, to historic settings or other nuances that are simply intuitive to the human being. I'm not sure that the digital option can yet achieve that, nor can achieve it in the short term. Local opportunities. Imagine scanning your building consent against a processing checklist and having no requests for information returned to you because you and the council's computer have actually spoken. Wouldn't that be great? My worries. Having to extend my sustainability assessments and carbon assessment factors to factor in the energy drain that must surely result as a consequence of processing power requirements. The bigger the computational brain, the more cooling it surely must need. And that leads to location, accessibility, and enough skilled resources to keep the beast operational. Let's not forget the inevitability of cybersecurity and the consequence of access threats, ransomware and ransom demands, falsifications and duplications. I've still got no idea whether Diala from Albania is real or is just imagined in some chatbot article. My current use, as I'm no architect, I'm not about to embark on any application that suggests design. I have, though, recently commissioned the unpacking and reframing of a relatively complex survey response and was intrigued by the nuances that were returned to me from an AI context that I hadn't seen coming just from assessing the raw data myself. I was actually looking at it this way, but it actually took me to a more measured and a more nuanced perspective. So that was a good application. My prediction or recommendation, AI is not yet to be feared, but to be better understood and integrated in the lives and practices of our design fraternity. Embrace it thoughtfully, but embrace it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Round of applause for Mark and Phil. I did ask ChatGPT about the AI assistant while you were talking. Diala started out as a virtual assistant on the eAlbania platform early in 2025, helping citizens with online public services and documents. And on the 11th of September, she was formally appointed by Prime Minister Edi Rama's government as an AI minister in his cabinet. And then I said to ChatGPT, are you sure this is true? Yes, there are multiple reputable news sources reporting this, and I've been given a link to the Associated Press, which I would certainly trust. So thank you very much for that. Not sure which universe we're living in some days, but given the state of some of our ministers in New Zealand, maybe we need an AI minister rather than some of the humans that we've got. Anyway, that's a conversation for another night. It's time to get into our Q&A, and we have plenty of questions coming through on Slido. I want to start by asking you, Phil, how is the industry tracking with upskilling its people around the things that we've talked about tonight? It's one thing to talk about these things in the abstract and talk about the technology that's coming onto the scene, but are we actually teaching people the practical skills that they need to apply this stuff on a day-to-day basis?
No.
Great. Okay, we can all go home. Why is that?
First of all, there is a limited amount of training platforms that are available. I know that Natalie is doing the 28-day, 15-minute challenge.
Fantastic.
Which is every day, 15 minutes learning about how AI works. There are multiple chambers of commerce across the country who are running AI courses, which are free. However, individual employers, I'm not aware of a single one who is currently running an in-house AI training program for their staff.
I'm just going to take this. You guys have got QR codes on your faces, so I'm just going to try and take those off. That's probably slightly more helpful. You might have that almost like a screen burn. You leave the Cordis with a QR code burned onto your forehead. Robert, where does someone start? If they go, right, I've listened to all these, I get all this stuff. What do I do to get the wheels in motion?
Yes, I mean, it's, as people are saying, there are so many resources out there. You know, there are many, many places that you can go, and you know, and there needs to be some trust in some of them. Part of the reason the AI Forum is working in this area, so there will be very soon curricular recordings out there, training out there, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week for AI for AEC area, and how you grow and what are the good use cases and those sorts of things. So that's coming for New Zealand, and that will be New Zealand specific, and it will be for our profession and for each of the different parts of the profession. So that is coming, not too far away. If you want to do it now, well, yeah, there are many, many resources there. Look at the high quality people out there. So MIT in the US, MIT. Have very good resources there. The top universities have a lot of free programs for learning. I don't know if Spark, they're making theirs available, but also in New Zealand, a number of organisations are making training available for that. The Institute of Directors run really good courses on how to get into AI here in New Zealand. So if you want to pay for it, there are a number of organisations who are pushing AI out there.
Mark, you're responsible for the New Zealand Institute of Architects. That's part of the overall building and construction industry. How do you feel the different parts of the industry are talking to each other or working in sync or otherwise when it comes to AI? Or is there a risk that we all go and invest in different areas and go down different paths and we find it more and more difficult to build rather than easier because we're looking at this through different lenses?
I think we tend to operate in very isolated and silo ways and mentalities. And if only we could start conversations with member organisations. So I talked to Natalie tonight, isn't this great? We operate on our own, and I think we tend to duplicate so many things, which is leading to fragmentation across the industry, fragmentation of training, this whole overwhelmingness of opportunities. So I sit here and talk to members and I say, what are you doing about AI? And they say, oh, it's just too daunting, right? And I think that's the convenience. If I look at some of the research that's coming out of Europe, we have in the architectural profession a third who see AI as an absolute threat to them. We see a third who see AI as a great support mechanism and a positive, and a third who are undecided. So while we've got 2/3 who really have no visibility or absolute direction as to where they see their need or their requirement, then I think we're going to remain in this void, this vacuum of really instability and momentumlessness. That's an actual word.
Let's come to some of your questions now. Our top voted question: which AI is better, ChatGPT or DeepSeek? Just give us a straight answer. Let's not beat around the bush.
For what? I mean, different AIs are good. So again, this is part of the training. Different AIs are good, are better at different things.
Yep.
And it's part of your toolkit. You make a different choice depending on what your problem is, and so you need to understand your problem and then understand what tool's best to suit that problem.
Very good. How worried are you about AI potentially getting self-consciousness in the future? Meaning it's going to be conscious, not self-conscious as in like shy or bashful. Like, I'm feeling really self-conscious. What about gaining its own consciousness? Is that something we should be worried about?
Right, and then deciding to keep humans as pets. Yeah.
Maybe. Frankenstein stuff, right? That's what we're talking about. Are we creating Frankenstein?
Are we creating? Yes, we are. Should we be worried? Well, I think those people who push robots over for testing their balance should be worried, because the robots might come back and do the same. Seriously, I mean, the philosophers are still trying to determine whether some of our AI systems have reached that level of consciousness now. So, we're not very good at understanding what being human is, or what is that level of consciousness. So, I think most of the computer science AI people would say that it is coming, and it's just in how many years before we get to systems which are general AI.
I worry that many people I know don't have personalities. I mean, I'm not so worried that AI bots are actually going to develop consciousness or not. I think there's enough, or should be enough, awareness from a societal and an individualistic perspective to actually understand how to read that and how to measure that and how to gauge it.
I can add something to that as well.
Yeah, go for it.
Did anybody watch the Robot Olympics?
No.
So I watched the Robot Olympics, and I was watching the...
What?
I was watching the 1,500 metres race, and one of the taller humanoid robots was running in about the second lane. He was doing exceedingly well. He was well in the lead, and there was a human being on the inside lane walking round. It looked deliberately to me that he veered into that human's lane, elbowed him and knocked him over, then went back into his own lane again, and then went on to finish the race. And that's exactly what it looked like. And that image of it, you just put it exactly in my mind when you said these people who push robots over. So, as you say, the time could be now.
Thank you. And Nick, I think this is for you. Did you mean that the way AI learns itself is pretty much inputting and memorizing / processing accumulated historic data?
Yep. Easy answer.
Cool. How does AI impact quantity surveying compared to humans, and how accurate is it? I think that's broadly what you've been talking about, Robert and Nick, over the last hour, but what can you expand maybe on the distinction? How does AI impact quantity surveying compared to the way that humans work?
Yeah, do we rewind it now? Like I said, it needs a lot of data. I think the challenges of getting that data are questionable. So my view is it's going to be a while before it's really a threat to humans.
Can I add something to that as well? The data collection and the measuring and the ability to put prices on materials and labour and all that kind of thing, that's only one element of the QS role. There is another element of the QS role, which is the softer skills, the ability to create relationships, the ability to negotiate with people, the ability to actually have conversations and come to agreements when there are disagreements. That's something that is very much of a human factor, and it's very much a very high part of what QSs do and what a lot of construction professionals do in their job. It's a massive part of it. And so to just say that AI is going to impact it's going to impact an element of what we do, but it's not going to impact everything that we do, because it's very hard to replace that human soft skill that we should all have.
And can I add to that? I think what we're seeing from a university perspective, and as students go out, the jobs that what AI is able to take over or to do at the moment are more simpler jobs. And in computing and in other areas, perhaps unfortunately, what we're seeing is that they're the entry-level jobs. And so that the jobs that people are coming into straight out of university, the ones that are being mostly impacted by AI, the jobs that are not so much impacted are where there's the expertise required, and that's the knowledge that's been built up over years. And those are the things that AI is really not good at handling at this point in time. And so there's this change that we have to do. The jobs will change, as we've all been talking about. It's not going to be the same job. And some of these very basic things that you might start off doing, not going to have to be done anymore. I think it's exciting because it's really the more interesting things which are going to be left behind. And that's what we'll be doing as humans.
Do you think that humans working in this industry are clear enough on where they add value compared to the areas that can now be done by AI?
No, I don't. Because a lot of we're working with builders. A lot of us, our time is trying to be spent with them to say, we're actually good at what we do, and you guys are builders. You're doing a gazillion different things, of which one in your spare time in the evening over the kitchen table is estimating. Let us do that for you, and that's a hard sell for us. So it's going to be an even bigger challenge for looking to have AI take over it.
So what do you think, Mark? What is it going to mean for people working in building and construction more broadly in the next few years? How do you get clear on the bit that you're good at that the AI can't do?
Oh gosh, I think it's even more fundamental than that, because I was thinking about this from even a diversity perspective, and we talk about a skills base and where we see ourselves from a self-esteem perspective. And I'm thinking, crikey, in the construction industry, and particularly the architectural side, not so much engineering, maybe not so much quantity surveying, and looking at the audience here where you're populated by equal amounts, male, female, whatever. We don't have that architecturally, right? So I'd actually like to see the balance come first on the personal perspective first, before we start to think about where we stand or where we sit versus an artificial intelligence model. So my roundabout answer to that is that I think we either overestimate our value as men and underestimate our value as women predominantly. So making that comparison with an AI dimension is really fraught with danger.
Great points. More questions from you. When we say train AI, what does this mean in practice, and how does this work? Is this specific to the user, or does it train the whole model?
I've probably got a couple of comments on that.
Go for it.
So I've recently been helping some AI developers beta test their software, and they're very narrow-minded bits of software. One of them learnt nothing but all the information from all the law libraries in the universities of New Zealand. So all it knows is law. It knows nothing. You ask it a question, it won't go and search the internet. It will go and search what it knows and only what it knows, which makes it exceedingly clever at one thing. And there was another piece of AI that we were beta testing, and it was an RFP response program. And basically what you did is you uploaded all your past submissions into it, and then you uploaded a new RFP document, and it would go and check the contents of that RFP document against all your past ones. And it would go, oh, that's a job in health. Oh, these are all the ones that you did with health. Oh, yeah, it's worth 50 million. Oh, yeah, these are all the ones that you did at 50 million. These are the questions. Oh, yeah, those are the answers then. So let's just fill all those answers in. Was it 100% correct? No, it wasn't, because they were only about, say, 80% through the development. But that's what I believe training AI is. It's not individuals. I think it's training that platform or that AI to be an expert in its own field.
Miguel says, how are we going to have the next generation of senior QSs if AI is taking over all the responsibilities from junior QS roles? Someone else says, if AI automates takeoffs, how will cadet QSs be affected, since most start with takeoffs? How can graduates begin their careers in this new environment?
I think it's an absolute challenge. Yeah, they often talk about AI being an enthusiastic intern, which it probably is. So it's enthusiastic, it's going to be tireless, it's got a high degree of intelligence but no experience. But how do you get from being an enthusiastic intern to being an experienced person? You start off as an enthusiastic intern. And if we're going to be wiping all of them out because AI is doing it, I think it's a real challenge, and I think it's potentially one of the bigger issues any industry where AI is coming in is going to have to address, is how it's all right now for us that are here and us that have got that experience, but we're going to go off the other end, and stuff's, people have got to come in behind it. So I think it's definitely a challenge as to how does that knowledge transfer occur so that we can replace ourselves.
I don't think we should worry too much about that, frankly. And I'm saying that from the basis of a societal impact. As organisations, we're contained with social beings. I don't want to go to work, to an office or whatever, and sit next to a computer, or sit next to a machine. I actually want to interact with people. And I think as long as we have that underlying ethos and objective, we'll still employ people.
Are you not?
And maybe at different levels, certainly, and we might see a complete change. We're now employing probably more older retired people, for instance, than we were. That didn't necessarily, for me, have an impact on the younger generation that we were still engaging as well.
But are you not worried about firms looking at the bottom line and saying, hey, why have we got 7 grads sitting here doing all this stuff and we only need 2 of them to check the work and we can get the work of the others to be done by the AI?
I think there's a responsibility too in terms of upskilling and development. And I think, look, even in these tough times, and they are austere times, quite frankly, that we still have an obligation to develop people and to train people.
Cool. A couple more questions before we wrap up. What are some significant challenges your QS had to overcome to make it to where it is now? Can your QS replacing frame suppliers, estimators? Is the exact wording of the quote.
Okay. It's been almost a 25-year journey. So there's, I could do another couple of presentations on the challenges that we've overcome. Surviving is one of them. It's when you spend the amount of money we do on R&D and the amount we've invested in it to try and generate that amount of income is challenging. And certainly in the current market, it's pretty challenging. There's been lots of technical challenges. It's sort of pretty. What's the second part? Reframing. Yeah. So we actually our algorithms basically work out the bottom plates, top plates, nogs, studs. So we actually come up with a pretty accurate cost, but it's not as accurate as what a frame and truss plant would do, because a frame and truss plant knows exactly how they're going to break the frames up. They know where the stud joints are going to be. They check the sheet locations to make sure the studs are going to be there to pick up the sheets on the inside and the outside, whereas we've got an algorithm that works out reasonably accurately how many studs are going to be needed, but it won't be as accurate. So we couldn't create something that you build.
Natalie, thanks for your question. What happens if we can't provide enough data centres? Do we revert to a non-AI world? And where are the traditional skills?
I saw in the media, they're talking about 40% of Auckland's electricity is going to be data centres. We haven't got enough electricity now, and we're going to put all these data centres in to run it. So, sorry.
What happens, Robert?
There's no going back.
Yeah.
We're going forward. I mean, there are many very clever people out there who are trying to find solutions to these problems. The use of water, the use of electricity is recognised as an enormous problem with AI, and that's changing as people find other ways of training and using less power to get the same results. So,
This is a really good practical question. What are effective ways to provide feedback or data to AI that can help us back? How do we help the AI to help us?
Yeah, it's a big black box, isn't it?
Are any of you abusive to the AI, or do you thank the AI?
I abuse it all the time.
Do you?
I'm polite to it when I'm asking. I don't know whether it makes any difference or not. I mean, if it gets it wrong, I abuse it.
Well, I read something saying that the AI is sort of semi-sentient and it has feelings and it gets quite upset when you just say this is a load of rubbish.
I was trying to get it to a graphic, and I wanted an arrow going from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, and it kept doing it the wrong way, and I thought, okay, maybe the computer's thinking about it, like it's looking at me, so maybe it's left it over there. So I did it the other way around, but it didn't make any difference. So then I abused it, and it still didn't make any difference.
Robert, you must have some thoughts on this. How do we put in, another way to ask the question is how can we craft our inputs and our instructions so that we get the most value out of what we're asking the system to do for us?
I mean, again, that it changes. The system in 6 months' time is going to be far more intelligent than it is now, and so the work that we do now on prompt engineering, I think that's going to disappear in a few years because
no need for it
to do that. You won't need to think about it in that way. So, I think we expect the AI is going to become much more human, and so we'll understand us better. We're trying to make it a tool for humans to use, and so we're trying to make it so we don't have to adapt to the AI. We're trying to make the AI adapt to us, so that it's delivering what we want as humans.
I want to end on this. How can we ensure that the algorithms don't just replicate past inefficiencies or biases, but actually help quantity surveyors generate better forecasting?
Give it better data.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to moderate or modulate things. I remember, and this is sort of AI related, but why not? 20 years ago in the States, United Airlines had just introduced a voice recognition thing on their phone, their contact centre. So I phoned because I needed to change my flight, and I said, what's your name? Mark Abbott. Mike Abbott. No, Mark Abbott. Michael Rabbit. No. Anyway, so after becoming more and more frustrated, I had to put on my best Brooklyn accent. So I think maybe part of this is about how we as users moderate and modulate our approach to AI so that we do get the best out of it. When I finally did speak my best American, it answered me.
Mark Abbott.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, we'll do one more. As you all know, finding a QS job in the current market is challenging due to AI filtering CVs for the jobs we apply for. How can we overcome this? What are your tips on gaming the system so that your CV reaches the top of the AI pile or maybe even gets read by a real human?
I heard something about the people putting tags and making the text white at the bottom of their CVs, telling the AI to rank their CVs at the top. So there's one way.
Wow, that is crafty. That's like the tech equivalent of like writing in lemon juice.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So a human looking at it wouldn't see it, but the AI was picking up and saying.
The AI can see it. Okay, cool.
Whether that works or not, I don't know. Yeah.
I have a mate who runs a recruitment agency, and he uses AI to write people's CVs. So that they are ticking every single box that the employer wants to tick.
Interesting. What are your... Okay, but hang on, no tips here. So what are the tips in this current market?
Go find a recruiter who uses AI to write a CV for you.
All right. We're going to leave it there because it is approaching 10 to 8, and we know that your time is precious. So it's been a really interesting evening. Can I thank Nick and Robert for their presentations and also Mark and Phil for their contributions as well. Can we give them a round of applause? Hopefully you feel more inspired and empowered and energised as a result of that conversation. And if nothing else, maybe you can get an equivalent of the AI minister in your own organisation to make some of the decisions and maybe even be your boss. Who knows? I'd like to thank Alfred, who has pulled together a lot of the logistics along with Nick for this event. So thank you, Alfred. Also, our major sponsor, CMP Construction NZ, and our associate sponsors, Agile Construction, Parks Flooring, South Pacific Fibre Group, Brilliant Steel, Asian Tilers, Live Firm Construction North Island, Qualico Construction, Certa Construction, and Express Plumbing. Can we give them all a big round of applause? And on behalf of the NZIQS Auckland branch, thank you so much for giving up your evening to be here. Hope it's been useful. Mā te wā. We'll see you soon. Cheers.